All right, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Jason Brown here. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you are a new viewer, appreciate you stopping by, and I hope that you learned something. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for your continued support. And I also hope you learned something too. Now, today, I have a top 5 list of items that we might be paying too much for. So here we go. I've narrowed it down to a top 5. You guys can tell me what you think. I have some notes here I'll be referring to. Now, the first one is weddings and funerals. Now, as we all know, both of these are very memorable and momentous events that whenever you put those tags on it, wedding or funeral, the price automatically skyrockets through the roof. This is what's happening. Now, in 2021, the average wedding cost in America was $28,000, which actually had gone down a little bit because of the pandemic. People seem to be spending less money on weddings, maybe just going to the courthouse or whatever, getting married in their backyard. I think that's what's been happening over the last couple of years with the pandemic, bringing the cost down. But the actual cost is, the average cost is actually about $34,000 when you include the engagement ring and things like that. So what we did is to not start our marriage in debt or anything like that. We actually did our whole entire wedding and honeymoon for $3,000. And I actually have a video on that. I will link in the description below if you guys want to watch that whole story. We did a wedding honeymoon cruise package with Carnival Cruise when we got married. So there's lots of creative and resourceful ways for you to get married and have a really nice, beautiful wedding without going into tens of thousands of dollars into debt. You do not want to start your life out together paying off your wedding for the first several years of your life together. So you can check out that video, find out some more tips that we did. So the other thing is, now we're talking about the funerals a little bit. Now, unfortunately, I have firsthand knowledge of this, real world knowledge of this, because my mother recently passed away. And I went through this whole process with my father and my sisters of planning the funeral and seeing the astronomical cost that they charge. Now, according to published reports, the average funeral costs between $7,000 and $12,000. And these costs might include the viewing, the burial, the service fees, the transportation, the casket, embalming, other prep is also included in this price. Now, the average cost of a funeral and a cremation services is significantly lower, $6,000 to $7,000. Now, these costs, of course, do not include cemetery, monument, marker, and other things like flowers. So there's lots of costs that surround a funeral that you might not realize unless you go through it firsthand, like I just recently did. So I will tell you that that cost range for the funeral, $7,000 to $12,000, I decided. What we paid was more than double of that. So it's a lot more than you might think, and it's a lot more than these averages are showing in these reports that I've read. It's really something that you get preyed upon because it's an emotional time for you. And first of all, death is big business in our country, in case you didn't know that. Death is big business, and these companies, these funeral homes, these cemetery places, they know that, and they are going to try to upsell you on every single thing. I think the average cost of a casket is somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 just for the casket alone. There's caskets, they sent us the website, pick out a casket, and there were caskets that cost almost $50,000. I mean, you can go buy a new car for that. So it was completely insane to see the cost of just the caskets alone. So this is something that you really, really need to take into account and really, really think about. So the big question is, do you want to be buried or do you want to be cremated? Being cremated is significantly less expensive than being buried. So these are things that, none of us ever want to, think about stuff like this. We're not trying to get too morbid here, but this is big business, and these expenses are tremendous. And there really isn't most people are not prepared for this until it happens. And that's kind of what happened to us and to my family. There was money, there, but we had no idea how much all this was going to cost us. So again, just prepare for that. So Second, number 2 is, no surprise, cable and streaming services. So cable, the average American spends over $2,600 a year on cable and internet alone. Now, the average American also spends around $50 a month on streaming services such as Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus. There's so many of them now. So here's the thing with, the whole cutting the cord trend and people wanting to cut the cord and save money. Well, yeah, you can cut the cord, cut the cable, but if you're cutting off the cable and buying 5 streaming services, you're really not saving any money. You're just replacing it with another platform of costs. So for me, what happened with me, my cable story real quick, is we were paying about $125 a month, and we had, I think we had like the expanded basic cable service, but we got several hundred, maybe 200 or 300 channels. And I sat down and kind of did a content analysis, if you will, and I sat down and I wrote down every channel that I watched over a course of maybe a month. I was like, I'm just going to, here, I watch sports, I watch ESPN, I watch, whatever, ABC, whatever the channels were. And I came up with a list of about somewhere around 7 to 12 channels that I consistently watched. And I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense. I'm paying for 250 channels that I don't even watch. So to me, that was wasteful. So I cut the cable off, and my wife agreed. And, she said, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't pay for all this stuff that we don't even use or watch. So that's what we did. We actually cut the cable. We went out and bought an HD TV antenna, which hooks up to our TVs. We got the indoor ones. We ended up getting about, believe it or not, we got about 70 local over-the-air stations. It gives you all the local, the broadcast, ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, and all the other locals that you would get. And then we went out and we did get Netflix. So we have Netflix. We have one streaming service, which, by the way, all the streaming services, they're continuing to jack up the rates. Netflix, $1 a month here, $1 a month there. I know they all are. Hulu, they all start out like $4.99 a month, and then next thing you know, you're paying $10 a month, and now you're paying $14.99 a month for some of these services. And Disney, I think they've increased their rates since they started as well. So that's another thing, is these streaming services, they very subtly nickel and dime you to death. 1 year, it went up $1 a month. You're not really going to notice that, but after about 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, when you started out paying $7.99 a month and now you're paying $14.99 a month, now they've got you. And you realize, oh shoot, this isn't what I signed up for. I thought I was getting a cheap rate. So that's another thing you got to consider with these streaming services, is they're a little sneaky with their rates. Okay, so now let's go on to the next one. The next one, smartphone apps. Now this is one that gets my 5-year-old son. He always wants to buy the apps. I try to explain to him, there's thousands of apps that are free, but he only wants the apps that you have to buy. So what I do, now we don't buy apps in the Brown house. I mean, you guys might, but we see no value in that when you can just download a similar app for free. Now he has all these apps that he likes to play games on. So the average U.S. User of iPhone apps spends $138 on apps a year in 2020, and actually in 2021 that went up to $180. So the average iPhone, app user spends $180 a year on apps. Might not sound like that much, but you do that over the course of 5 years or whatever, it all adds up. That's over $1,000. So for me, when my son comes to me and says, hey, I want this app, and I see, this app is $1.99 or $2.99. I said, okay, well, let's see if we can find another app that's basically the same thing. There's going to be similar apps of all these other ones. Let's find a similar app that's free, and you will be able to do that if you search through the search queries. So that's how I kind of do that. So the next one is actually I wrote baby toys, but it's also just toys in general. So toys is a huge industry in our country. The average American child receives over $6,500 in toys in their lifetime. So this is where it gets to be a little bit too much, a little bit overwhelming. They get optionitis. They have so many toys they don't even know what to do with. And I remember at one point my son actually came to me. He says, "Daddy, I have too many toys." I said, "You know what? You're right. Let's get rid of some. Let's sell some. Let's donate some. Let's give some to your friends. Maybe trade. Maybe do a bartering system." So that's a big problem. And more especially like baby toys, people will tell you all these things you need for babies and all these toys. Oh, they got to have these. This is so great. It's, blah, 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 top reviews. And then, 9 times out of 10, the baby is not going to like it or use it or play with it. Or maybe he or she uses it for a few weeks or a month and then it's done. And when most of the time babies just like playing with cardboard boxes or playing with, empty cups or, playing with, ice cubes, stuff like that. You don't need to go out and buy all these baby toys. So save money on that too. You're probably spending too much money on that. Now the last one, number 5, which is near and dear to my heart, is student loans. You don't need student loans. I've written a book about it. I'll link it in the description below. You can check it out. I've written a book on how to avoid student loans. I've done it twice. I have 2 debt-free degrees. I've interviewed many other people for this channel that have also had debt-free degrees. You can check it out in my playlist. I have a playlist set up, student loan debt crisis playlist. You can check all those videos out there. But first of all, we're paying way too much for college because the cost of college has gone up insanely high, and it's going up because people can because of the loan industry. If you have a pulse, you can get a loan. You can get a loan. The colleges will keep increasing their costs because people can get loans for whatever price the college is. So this is a terrible thing that's going on in our country right now. The student loan crisis really, really needs to be resolved because it's just really wrecking so many people's lives when they get out of college and they have, most people that graduate college, you're already broke, and then now you have debt. 70% of all college graduates graduate with debt, and the average person's debt is somewhere around $35,000. It's not good because guess what? That interest starts accruing, and then it builds and builds and builds, and then you have to pay more. So that is something that you really need to take into consideration on how to try to avoid it. So those are my top 5 items of things that you might be paying too much money for. I'm sure there's many, many more that you guys might be thinking of as you're watching this video. Put it in the comments below what you guys think are some things that you pay too much money for. I would love to hear them and respond to those as well. So until next time, this is Jason Brown saying thanks so much for watching. If you would like to support me further, you can subscribe to my channel. I always talk about money on this channel. I would truly appreciate it. Also, wait a few seconds. At the end of the video, there's going to be a couple more videos pop up on the screen that are related to this video if you want to check out those. And if you want to see all my books and blogs and videos, you can check out my website, yourmarginmatters.com. And until next time, this is Jason Brown saying thanks so much for watching. And remember my favorite saying, it's not the amount of money you make, but the margin that matters the most. We'll see you next time.